I believe it'll have a premium because eventually, just like stocks have a PE, it will. So I buy into the whole concept, and I understand why on the one side, the traditional fiat world thinks it's a scam and they believe it should go to zero. And then on the other side, it has two components to it. And this is the thing I want to say to everyone who's maybe disappointed this year. Yes, it has the Bitcoin side, but it also has the volatility side.
One of the most important long-term indicators in crypto. The number of global Bitcoin holders continues to rise, and it hasn't slowed down. Reports like A16Z's State of Crypto show meaningful expansion, especially in developing economies. These are countries where local currencies often collapse and financial systems are unreliable. For many, Bitcoin isn't a speculative play, it's a lifeline. The reason growth remains strong is simple. Bitcoin solves real problems in places where traditional finance fails. Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space, and drop your comments and observations in the comment section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
First of all, Bitcoin holders just continue to increase. So it hasn't stopped. And I think A16Z put out their State of Crypto, which is a report that I like to read every year, and I just went through it. I'll include a lot of it on my YouTube this week, and they highlight the fact that the holders around the globe continue to increase, particularly in other countries. I do think stablecoin has a slight negative on one aspect, because if you're in Argentina and you want to save the money you have two choices. Let's say you have stablecoin, dollar-backed stablecoin, you have Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Well, now that you have a dollar-backed stablecoin, if you just want to put it in someplace safe where there's no volatility, you got it. And so if you're going from a place where it could devalue by 90%, stablecoin will be part. But eventually what will happen is they'll want to accrue wealth too. And they'll be like, oh, I want to make money too. I don't want to just hold it. So let me take a percentage of that and move it in. So the normal, and we talk about that in the US. What is a US version of stablecoin for Argentina? It's called money market funds.
Yeah.
And the money market goes in there. And so every now and then people will be, oh, the money's going to leave money market funds. It's going to go into risk assets. That's the whole point. Is I think the first step is for these countries to move money and remittances into stable coins. And then once they have a wallet set up, it's just a normal thing to be like, I want to buy something else. Let me move it into this. What will happen with tokenization is that'll increase the ability for people to do other assets. The beauty is, for me, and I've said this multiple times, AI agents are the greatest thing to come to Bitcoin. They will be transacting more, digital, making decisions that are based on truth and reality, not emotion. Why don't traditional finance people own Bitcoin? They say they love good Sharpe ratios. That's not true, because then they'd have a lot of their money in Bitcoin.
Right.
They're actually making emotional decisions because they've created this narrative. Because the one thing that scares people, and this goes back to your question about AI bubble, why do people compare this to the dot-com bubble? They wouldn't compare it to the dot-com bubble if there never was a dot-com bubble. So you have one data point and people go, this is just like the dot-com bubble. It's not just like the dot-com bubble.
Yeah.
I'm believing two things. One is that the digital capital of the world is going to change. And as it changes, someone that owns the most Bitcoin gets to do things with their business that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do. We have to get to that point where Bitcoin is actually used for collateral, where it's used for things. Then it can be done in this. He's already shown that he's creative in terms of structured products and delivering this in a vehicle that most people can invest in. So I believe in all of the vehicles. I believe it'll have a premium because eventually, just like stocks have a PE, it will. So I buy into the whole concept, and I understand why on the one side, the traditional fiat world thinks it's a scam and they believe it should go to zero. And then on the other side, it has two components to it. And this is the thing I want to say to everyone who's maybe disappointed this year. Yes, it has the Bitcoin side, but it also has the volatility side. He has sold enough volatility to compress it. So when you take the Bitcoin OG selling versus, let's just simplify it and say IBIT inflows, and they just keep going like this, well, you're depressing volatility. His stock should be going down relative to Bitcoin because there's a volatility component. I still believe eventually we will have a major short squeeze in Bitcoin. And I think in my history of trading markets, that will occur soon, because when you trade in a range and volatility declines, if you make another high and you start going through it and people start jumping into it, it'll run out of sellers. And that's the one thing I will say is every time an OG seller sells to, let's assume that every IBIT buyer, when you add them up in a day, is 1,000 buyers. So you have one seller and you have 1,000 buyers, little tiny things. Those they're allocating from a start. They're not going to sell. So once you get through all of that selling, there's not going to be anybody left to sell. And I think Michael knows that. And that's why when he says it'll get above gold's, I believe it'll be above gold's market cap. And I believe it has to happen at a time when there's no other innovation stocks that are working and people are looking to diversify their portfolio. And if you add in my thoughts on next year will be we're curing cancer thought because of AI drug discovery. Once you get to that, then Rick's thing starts to become more of a topic of conversation too. The purpose of it was really a feeling that I had that had developed over the course of the year. Part of that came from just listening to people that are in the space. As I've become more, let's say, entrenched in the crypto community, I have a lot of people that reach out to me in email that have acquired my text, and I'm getting a lot of messages over the course of, let's say, the last 3 months where frustration had been building in, sentiment had dropped off. And the way that I write is really geared towards the odds in the market. And this is something that comes from my background, from my father teaching me how to handicap horse races when I was a kid. And so what I'm always looking for, the long shots. And when sentiment gets really bad, there's usually a good opportunity to put money to work. So the question for me was, why is everyone so negative when at the time when this really started, it was still outperforming the S&P 500. It wasn't bad. It almost was like an entitled problem. And to me, in talking to people, and it was after Mike Novogratz on the Galaxy earnings call mentioned that they had one seller who sold $9 billion of Bitcoin. And to me, in listening to an interview he subsequently did where he talked about it, he also talked about people that would sell to bring in income, especially out of Asia, and that this was a part of the process that went on. And I started to really think about the fact that I think people are missing a big picture here, which is the people who are selling, based on everything I've heard, are long-term holders, and a lot of them are dormant owners who haven't had their coins out in the market for a long time. And that's really like an IPO. So an IPO, you have a lot of VC people that invest early in an idea. And remember, they lose in a lot of these. So these are situations where eventually they need to monetize. And that's what it felt like to me, was people were getting too negative and they needed to calm down. And the reason they needed to calm down is because I literally feel at the same time that we're at the beginning of a major bull market in the space because of the government and because of the innovation now becoming more relevant at this time. And so it just felt like that's what happened with Google and Salesforce.com in 2004 after the dot-com bubble. And so all of that just kind of bubbled to the surface. I started to write it. And like I said, I'm surprised that people embraced it so much, but I'm glad they did.
As assets become tokenized and move more freely, the financial system becomes more efficient and leverage decreases. Bitcoin benefits because it's the final settlement asset in a digital economy. Visser believes both forces operate together. He sees Bitcoin at the early stages of a network effect expansion, and that's far more important than month-to-month liquidity flows.
So I think we're at the beginning stages of the network effect. So I'm going to use a technology side for this, but I'm also going to try to give your audience a different way of thinking from two camps, and using one part, which is what I hear a lot of people talk on your show and other shows about, the need for, let's say, liquidity in the market, which is historically been associated with leverage. So let's put QE, weaker dollar, liquidity in one camp. So you'll see these liquidity charts going up. So that's one side. And then the other is Caitlin Long, who I know, and we've had conversations, but she has a very different story about the importance of Bitcoin at this stage. And this gets into the velocity of money. So on the one side, we've had tremendous leverage that have entered the system over the course of really the last 20 some odd years. And the first baby boomer retired around 2011. And so when you start getting into the point, the transfer payments from the government have been going up consistently since the great financial crisis, but they're going to continue to grow because the government has to give people more social security and promises that they made. And so that's something that people focus on, like Bitcoin's going to go higher because we're going to get more leverage and we're going to go through. I actually think over time, part of the story for Bitcoin and crypto is that leverage is going to come down as more money transfers from the fiat system into the crypto world. And the reason is because a lot of the, let's say, tokens in the fiat world are dormant. So a dormant token is private credit, it's private equity, it's VC, it's real estate, it's illiquid assets that never trade. What Caitlin's talking about and what I think people need to embrace is that we're at the beginning of tokenization. Tokenization to me is the ability of anyone who has a dormant asset in the fiat world being able to transact in it all of a sudden, that there'll be a market for all of these components. So Bitcoin fits into this because the digital economy and the financial guardrails are dependent on crypto, and every year this is going to increase. The reason this year, in my opinion, that it's been kind of a frustrating year is not just the insider selling, the OG selling, which is they should be doing. They're overweight an asset. There's other things to invest in innovation now, AI. But I think the other problem that's come in is that people forget the hangover from the crypto winter that is still there, and the fact that the VC world is still trapped in bad investments from them, not only in that, but in SaaS, which has also been disrupted by AI.
Young people really do feel priced out. They're increasingly renters, and they feel like rent is also just a massive portion of their income. So how do we fix that issue?
In the near term, I don't see any chance that it gets significantly better. I do believe it's all about deflation, but not the deflation that people worry about. I believe we're on the beginning stages of significant pressure on things to come down. Rents are coming down. So the housing market is already kind of softening as it is. Drug prices are going to come down based on AI drug discovery. So the administration is focused on this. The healthcare side is a lot of the inflation that's still there. So where the government has been involved, education, healthcare, and also housing has been a problem. I think all of these little things are not going to change the puzzle. If the Fed lowers rates by 100 basis points next year, that will absolutely help young people by moving mortgages lower. I do think some of these things, and I think the portable mortgage thing has always been an answer that I agree with. Anthony has talked about it when we've sat down, and he was the first person I actually heard talk about it, and this was months ago, where I do believe it should happen. I think if they can find a way to do this, both Democrats and Republicans should agree on it. I think because of the midterms, we will do something in housing that has to happen. To your point of when does it actually get to the point where it actually works? So people know this. The only way it gets there is with the acceleration of AI. When we have humanoids, the cost of building a house will go down significantly. And if the cost of building a house goes down significantly, the cost of the house goes down. So we have another 5 years to wait before that process kicks in. So in the interim, what the government is doing before deflation actually sets in from exponential innovation, to Jeff's point, if you can have that happen, everything kind of works out in a good way. It will happen eventually. It's just going to take some time.
Jordi Visser's perspective is rare in today's financial landscape. He sees beyond the daily noise and connects macroeconomics, AI, demographics, Bitcoin, and tokenization into one coherent, long-term framework. Here's the core of his message. Bitcoin adoption continues globally. Stablecoins are the on-ramp, not the competition. Tokenization will unlock trillions in dormant assets. Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space, and drop your comments and observations in the comment section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks, and enjoy the video.